Welcome to Bartleby the Scrivener, a story of Wall Street. Today we're going to see what we can say, if anything much, about Herman Melville's short story. Herman Melville, born in 1819 and he died in 1891, wrote Bartleby the Scrivener and published it in 1853. It's a story in contrasts and perhaps cancellations. Melville had just published his great American novel, Moby Dick. It is a great work, and he saw it as such, but it was a financial failure. It became a great American classic, and it's known for its searching for ultimate meaning. It's got amazing passages of wild nature, mystery, awe-inspiring passages and episodes, encounters with God and the supernatural, just amazing passages that totally fit into the romantic movement. But the novel was a financial failure when it came out. So when we look at Bartleby that comes out shortly after, the story may say something about Melville's response to the business of publishing and what people actually wanted to pay money to buy and read. In contrast to Moby Dick, Bartleby may present an absence. Melville is clearly a writer in the romantic tradition, but in this story it's very hard to see. And it may be that he's presenting man in nature as an absence, or there is an absence of nature altogether. We definitely seem to have an absence of the sublime, and reason here is definitely taking precedence over anything like intuition or emotion, and there doesn't seem to be much on the surface, any motivation beyond logic in the story. If you look at the Module 8 page, the page for this module in the course, you'll see that there is a painting on your checklist. There's a painting from the Hudson River School. It's a romantic painting. You could also Google images of paintings done by the Hudson River School artists. These are romantic artists. They celebrated nature, sought communion with it, just as the writers did. This is seen in the paintings. You can see the openness, the focus on the horizon, that natural, wild world. This is the sort of thing that you would experience if you read Moby Dick. In contrast to that, we've got Bartleby. Think about how open the image is in that painting. You could even look at the background on this particular Pretzi presentation. The background is an image of Wall Street in the 1850s. Wall Street doesn't look anything like, say, those Hudson River landscapes. Even the street of Wall Street is shortened, and in the story you run into all sorts of plays on words where one word or image or scene cancels out another. Think about a street. You typically don't have a wall in a street, but in this case, the street is curtailed or shortened by the wall. You also want to think of the contrast in this story, Bartleby, the contrast between Bartleby and, say, Emerson's Nature. Think about the difference in focus, the difference in what's celebrated or important. Actually, is anything celebrated or important in Bartleby here? You might think about, too, some of the descriptions. Think about Bartleby and how you would describe Bartleby and contrast that with how you might describe the person who is encountering nature in the transcendent eyeball. How different from the description of Bartleby that we have. I can see that figure now. Pallidly neat, pitiably respectable, incurably forlorn. It was Bartleby. Think about his office and where his desk is located. The narrator says, I placed his desk close up to a small side window in that part of the room, a window which originally had afforded a lateral view of certain grimy backyards and bricks. And that's supposed to be hopeful compared to the next phrase, but which, owing to subsequent erections, commanded at present no view at all, though it gave some light. Within 3 feet of the panes was a wall, and the light came down from far above between 2 lofty buildings. So you have poor Bartleby, who is sitting in an office next to a window on Wall Street, but the window looks out at nothing but a brick wall. How does this make you feel? Think about the effects on you as a reader. How do you feel about the narrator? How do you feel about Bartleby? And for that matter, what do you really know about him? Not much, if you want to think about Bartleby as a human being. We know that he is a scrivener. What's a scrivener? Well, is it a writer? Kind of, but not really. When we think about a writer in Melville's terms, we think of an author with an imagination who creates new images and worlds and people. But no, in this case, the scrivener is one who copies someone else's words, legal documents over and over again. There's no creativity, there's no art, there's no imagination, and perhaps there's no life. Think about where Bartleby was before he came to work in this office. It is presumed that he worked before at the dead letters office. There are all sorts of plays on words here then, with letters, dead letters, being a writer but not being a writer, working on a street but it's a Wall Street. So there are things that cancel out meaning and seem to cancel out life. So how does Melville make you feel about the narrator, Bartleby, the office? Would you want to live there? Would you want to work there? How do you feel about humanity in a story where Bartleby is sent to the tombs whenever they can't get him out of the location that he's in? When he's just refusing to move, they send him to the tombs, which is a prison. What then does Melville say? We have questions for this story. 2 of them might be, why does Melville leave us hanging? Why do we never find out what Bartleby's really about? Why do we not really find out much about the narrator? And what does Melville want to convey in the story? It's frustratingly hollow, empty. There's not the richness that you find in Moby Dick. It doesn't mean that Melville has decided not to be a romantic, but perhaps he's showing us what a world without that romantic vision could be like. What does a life of capitalism, of urban profit-making, of industrialism do to the human soul? What can we know about people when all we know of them is their one little part in an assembly line? Are they just a piece in a machine, a cog on a wheel in a giant machine? So what does Melville want to convey in this story? And think about your frustrations, about how you feel as you read the story, and why does Melville want to irritate you? What might he be trying to encourage you to think or do?